Good morning and welcome to Inside Texas Politics. I'm Jason Whiteley. We begin with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. 20 of the 22 issues he campaigned on got passed. Among them, your child's school will soon get a grade, a new A through F grading system for each campus. Plus, homeowners should expect a property tax cut of $125 on average, and lawmakers dedicated more than $4 billion a year for roads. The Lieutenant Governor sat down in studio just a few days ago with me and Bud Kennedy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Lieutenant Governor, thanks for being here.
It's great to be back.
Morning, Ted.
You're touring the state. You're telling voters what was accomplished in the legislative session.
Yes.
What are they telling you they want to see next session?
Well, right now they're absorbing what was accomplished because we did a lot. Someone asked me for a scorecard, and I don't grade myself, but I give the senators an A-. No one gets an A. No one has a perfect record. But if you look at the broad array of what was accomplished, it was quite a session. The senators really worked hard on our side of the building, and the House passed a lot of the legislation, and a lot of it got to the governor's desk. And one of the reasons this was an unusually successful session, we changed the 19-vote rule in the Senate, so you only needed 19 votes to bring a bill to the floor. So that brought a lot of bills to the floor that had been blocked in the past. And secondly, we haven't had a new governor or lieutenant governor in about 15 years. So as Governor Abbott and myself campaigned, we talked about doing a lot of things: border security, property taxes, business taxes, transportation funding, education reform. And so we had a lot of boxes to check off, and we checked off a lot of boxes.
And I was going to say, you guys delivered on almost everything you campaigned for last year, too.
Yeah.
Many of your allies and supporters...
Isn't that nice to hear for a change?
It is, indeed. Congratulations on that, too, Lieutenant Governor. Many of your allies and supporters, though, from the Tea Party left frustrated, thinking that more of their agenda wasn't done.
I wouldn't
what do you tell them?
Well, I would respectfully disagree. Not many. It's a large state, 26 million people. We're a large Republican Party. There were a few people that said, gosh, you didn't get 100% done. And, you know, that they're entitled to their view. But obviously we have a great relationship with the Tea Party and the grassroots. And what I told the grassroots, they should feel good. I had a phone call just recently with a number of state leaders. And I said, look, you're never going to get 100%. But of the 22 priority issues that we laid out at the beginning of the session, we passed 20. That's 90%. And these are all major things, many things that had never passed before. I said, but the grassroots, you need to feel good about what you've accomplished. I wouldn't be lieutenant governor without you. You wouldn't have had some of the freshman senators, 8 new freshmen, without you. A lot of the public policy today you've been instrumental in. So the grassroots should feel very good of the things they've accomplished in Texas over 5 or last 6 years.
How was that
Politics has changed.
And how was that received?
Oh, it's received very well. I mean, they're very happy. Again, look, you can all, and the media loves to find one person, no matter what the story is. Look, I've been in the media. I understand. You try to find one person to say something negative, and then that's the story. That's a thimbleful of people who feel, like they didn't get everything done. So. All right.
Dan, there were a lot of concerns from a lot of groups about you going into the session.
Yes, sir.
What's it going to be
Probably
like?
yours.
Oh my gosh, and then a month or so deep in the session, you had so many press conferences, done so many appearances, put out so many press releases. Even one of the top House committeemen said that you were showing too much exuberance and trying to run through everything and show everybody else up. Did you change middle of the session, and do you feel like you won some people over?
Well, there was a very nice article in the Houston Chronicle this week of high marks, and every senator they talked to thought we did a really good job, and we let senators be senators. It was an interesting session. Although I've been in the Senate for 8 years, I was a new lieutenant governor. We had 8 new senators. That's 40% of the Republicans were new. 9 overall, so that's 30% of the Senate was new. We had 7 new chairmen. Jane Nelson did a fabulous job as the new chairman of Finance.
I asked about you. I know you want to give everybody else credit.
Well, I want to give everybody else credit because I succeed or fail by their work. No different than this TV station. You guys can look on camera, but if they don't do the job in the director's booth and on the floor, suddenly you don't look so good. So the Senate did a great job, so it reflected positively on me. But in terms of change, but actually no, we had a plan. The one thing you all know, you've followed me long enough, I don't throw change-ups and curveballs. I throw fastballs right down the middle. I say what I mean what I say, and then we go after it. So you're never surprised. But my plan was for the Senate to lead as they used to lead. And so we put out all of our key legislation. by late April, early March. Late April, early May, was all to the House, and then there was no need for any press conferences. I didn't have a press conference after all the bills were filed.
Going into the session, Lieutenant Governor, we heard a lot of talk about repealing the DREAM Act, about ending sanctuary cities. Neither of those came to fruition.
Right. The only two things of the 22 priorities, those were the two. We got them out of committee. They got to the Senate floor. Sanctuary cities had 18 votes. We were short one the whole session. We needed one more vote. And in-state tuition was about 3 or 4 votes short. So those were the only two things. Again, you're focusing on, let's focus on the 20 things of 22 that happened. Let's talk about property taxes, education, business taxes, transportation, border security, all those issues that were done. Moving the integrity unit, the public integrity unit, out of Travis County. They've been trying to do that for 2 decades.
But Dan, is there some friction there? Because the Texas Association of Business opposed doing away with in-state tuition, opposed the sanctuary city, opposed or supported, opposed having the same-sex marriage knocked down, opposed the laws knocking it down. Is there some friction between the faith and values group that elected you and the business conservatives, and did it show up in the Senate?
No, because I know a lot of businessmen in this city and every city across the state that have strong family values and strong religious beliefs. Look, you have to get, again, here we go, and this is why I'm doing the tour to talk about the positive things. Hopefully we'll get to them. You guys are focusing on 2 things that did pass, or 3 things out of 23 or 24, if you want to add a few bills to it. We accomplished a lot. Not everything passes, and it's not friction. I mean, we were 1 vote short. We got it out of committee, and in-state tuition, we got out of committee, and we were about 3 votes short. I don't know what else to tell you, but everything else that we campaigned on, Governor Abbott, myself, we, in some form or the other, Senate bill, House bill, an amendment to a bill, it all passed. And that was great work by everybody.
Let's dig down into the accomplishments here, too. You promised property tax cuts and got that, too. State Representative Jonathan Stickland in Fort Worth, Tea Partier, Republican, also said $125, which is on average what most homeowners will feel if they have their property homesteaded. He said that is, quote, not the kind of relief that people who voted in the Republican primary were looking for.
But here you go again, Jason.
But what do you
find? No, wait a minute. This is what the public doesn't like about the media.
Dan Patrick suggested our questions are not focused on the right things. When we return, we'll pick up with where we left off with our interview. Inside Texas Politics is back in 3 minutes. Let's pick back up now in our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. He suggested we dig down into more legislative accomplishments that Texans will soon see, but Patrick took issue with the way we framed our next question. Here's the remainder of our interview. Let's dig down into the accomplishments here, too. You promised property tax cuts and got that, too. State Representative Jonathan Stickland in Fort Worth, Tea Partier, Republican, also said $125, which is on average what most homeowners will feel if they have their property homesteaded. He said that is, quote, not the kind of relief that people who voted in the Republican primary were looking for.
But here you go again, Jason.
But what do you
find? No, wait a minute. This is what the public doesn't like about the media. You're always looking for the gotcha or one person. And Jonathan's a fine guy. He has his opinion. He's one of 181 members, and that's what you talk about. Let's look at the property tax package.
And that's my question. Yes. How do you tell Representative Stickland or others who say 125 is not very much?
Well, let me tell you what the package is. Can I tell you?
Please do.
First of all, SJR 1, Senate Joint Resolution 1, the voters will vote on November, does 2 things. The main thing it does that no one knows about or talks about is it will forever prohibit a sales tax being placed on your property when you sell it, whether it's a home or business. 38 states tax you when you sell your property. Texas will be the first state in the country to prohibit it, always. That is a huge issue. Was it going to happen this session or next session? Not under my watch, but is that something that was going to be a pot of money that elected officials would go after at some point and have talked about in the past? You bet. That's the main part of that. The second part is increasing the homestead exemption from $15,000 to $25,000. If you live in a $100,000 home, that's a 10% cut. A $150,000 home, it's about a 7% cut. The Senate actually passed a much higher homestead exemption, and the House cut it back. That's the part of the process. That's just step one. But the other cornerstone of the property tax package that a lot of members in the media haven't read, don't understand, and maybe some members in the legislature have not read it, is Senate Bill 1760. That's the key. because Senate Bill 1760 will put downward pressure on your property taxes going up because of your appraisal values. Right now, and I think both of you know this, there are local elected officials who raise your taxes, can raise your taxes without ever voting to raise your taxes. They let the property values go up, and they let the budgets float up with it. Well, starting now, your local elected officials in the 4,000 taxing districts across the state are going to have to make an affirmative vote to raise your taxes more than they were the year before. Now, that's a game changer. It's one thing for them to let their budgets go up 8 or 9 or 10% automatically because property values went up. It's another thing for them to actually vote to raise your taxes 8, 9, or 10%. Because if they do that very often, they're not going to be in office very long.
And go on the record with it, yeah.
Go on the record with it. So that's a big bill. No one really talked about the sales tax issue and this issue. And I understand headlines are short and sound clips are short. And if this does not work to put downward pressure on your property taxes, property taxes should not go up more than population inflation, whatever that might be, 2, 3, 4% a year. They should not be going up 8 or 9, 10% a year. And on business property that do not have a homestead exemption, they can go up 15, 20, 25, 30% a year. People cannot afford it. And if the local elected officials, and I respect they have a hard job, but they don't need a government budget that grows at 2 and 3 times more than the average person's salary. If they don't bring down property tax rates where people can afford their home and businesses, then the next session will do even more.
This was my. What else do you expect?
Well, we looked at another bill of a rollback rate, of setting the rollback rate to 6%. So if taxes went above 6%, they would have to vote to do that. Right now, there's some other numbers that they're basically ignored and let property taxes go up higher than that. We actually thought the language in 1760 is stronger than the 6% rollback rate.
Do you see more cuts next session?
As long as I'm Lieutenant Governor, I will always be trying to cut property taxes. People should not be taxed out of their homes. And this is something, Jason, when I knew you back in Houston many years ago, this was something that I was a leader on long before I was ever elected to office. I mean, I've been focusing on this since the late 90s. As soon as they put in that 10% cap, I knew it would be the floor.
I have a few more quick questions for you, too, here. Proudest piece of legislation. You got 20 of the 22 things you wanted passed. What are you most proud of?
Well, I'm proud of our budget. Our budget that put $800 million in border security. The House had 565. They ended up at our number. That $800 million is about 2.5 times what the last border security budget was. That's going to enable our DPS to have 10-hour work days that they requested, which is the equivalent of 600 more officers around the state in terms of man hours. It's money in there for the National Guard so the governor can use it as he seems fit. Rick Perry didn't have the money to even call up the Guard, had to borrow some from this year's budget. I didn't want that to happen. New technology. So big issue on the budget.
Now, how do we measure the results of that?
We're appointing a commission to oversee the results. But I was just in the Valley last week, Bud, and this week last year, we were apprehending on average about 7,000 people a week. The last 10 months, we've been apprehending about 2,500 a week. It's made a difference. So I'm proud of a budget that also put additional money into education, $5 billion into transportation without raising taxes or fees, and the folks will have a chance to vote on that in November as well, SJR 5. Things that just had not been done. And the budget stayed under population and inflation. What I tell local elected officials they must do, we stayed under population and inflation, not counting the tax relief. Our budget went up about 3.9% a year, and we have more money in reserve than we've ever had before, not just dollars, but in percentage. And why we kept about, the official number is not in yet, $5 to $6 billion in reserve, plus we didn't touch a dollar in the rainy day fund. And why is that important? Well, oil is down in the 50s. We don't know where the economy is moving. We're kind of holding in there. We're more diverse than we used to be when oil went down. Secondly, we have a school finance lawsuit. We have a few other lawsuits against the state. And it's wise not to spend all the money. So as the conservative government, we kept our budget in check. We met our needs. We put $50 million more into women's health care. I mean, we did a lot of things. We did something I'm really proud of. We put $500 million into deferred maintenance of all of our public facilities. We've had buildings that the state owns in Austin around the state have been in disrepair. So we've addressed a lot of these things. And when you have a budget, and I know all your listeners won't know, all the senators, but you all know, when you have a budget that passes 30-1 in the Senate, that's a really good budget, because that means everyone on the right and everyone on the left said, this is a budget that's good for Texas.
You also allowed some tuition bonds that will be very important for schools in Dallas Fort Worth.
We did that.
Tell us what those do.
They're called tuition revenue bonds, TRBs. But the state really pays for them. You know, it sounds like you pay for it out of tuition, but we pay the interest and pay off the bonds. Right. We do them about every decade. We had not done the last series of bonds since 2006. They failed last session. We passed them this session. My focus on so it takes money and basically says if you're UT, if you're A&M, if you're Texas State, the campuses give us your key projects. We evaluate those key projects and we allow you to borrow the money and we pay the interest. So it cost us about $200 million a year roughly to pay the interest on these bonds, and my focus was on medical schools and schools of engineering. I didn't want money to go to build a new Taj Mahal campus building that we don't need. I want it to be where we need specific buildings. And so UT Southwestern, one of our great schools, of course, in the country, they had some real need. We focused on UT Southwestern as we did schools all around the state.
And as soon as you gavelled out of the session, I think some reporters moseyed up to you there and asked whether you would challenge Governor Abbott for a seat. You said no, you wouldn't. I am curious, though, Lieutenant Governor, do you have ambitions higher than Lieutenant Governor?
Absolutely not. And I can.
You do not.
I do not. And Bud and Jason, here's the reason I said it. Someone, I don't know if the media, someone was spreading the rumor. Everywhere I went around the state, I hear you're running against Greg Abbott in 2018. I've been through one long, tough campaign to become Lieutenant Governor. First of all, don't want to walk down that road again if you don't have to. Secondly, Greg Abbott and I are friends. We share our conservative vision. We campaigned on the same issues. And Lieutenant Governor is where all the action is. It's fun. I love it. I've been in the Senate 8 years. I know the people. I know it. I have no intention, and I will never run against Greg Abbott. And I think he'll be there 2, 3. I don't know how long he plans to be there, but I think he'll be there a while. And by the time he leaves, trust me, my wife will say, "You've done enough." So it's an easy one. I'm not, and and I think the public gets tired of seeing people run for one office, and on day one they start positioning themselves for the next office. Do your job that we elected you for. And that's what we plan to do.
Well, you had a productive session, got 20 of the 22 things you campaigned on, so congratulations for that, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. Thank you.
We appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Jason.